So AI is silently stealing entry-level cybersecurity jobs in 2025, and the job market is changing because just getting certifications is no longer good enough. You need hands-on practical skills, and you especially need to learn how to use AI in cybersecurity. Learn that, and you could land a 100K plus remote role. Stick around because I'm going to show you 4 ways that AI is being used in cybersecurity and how you can learn them for free. My name's AJ. I've been in cybersecurity for the last 9 years. On this channel, we teach all things cybersecurity for beginners, so let's get into it. Cybersecurity is changing. My role as a senior cybersecurity analyst has changed quite a lot over the last year and a half, where I've been expected to actually conduct more automation style tasks involving artificial intelligence. Now, the need to understand and learn these skills is what is changing in the market. So companies are wanting to adopt artificial intelligence, are wanting to adopt these automation tools because ultimately it can make their company more efficient. And if they can make their company more efficient by having automation and less employees, then they're going to move towards doing that. And to be able to stay ahead, cybersecurity is no different. We need to learn how to use AI in a cybersecurity context. But the great thing about this change is that not many places are actually teaching this, so it's going to allow you to stand out when it comes to interviews. And as we can see here, we're just searching for cybersecurity analyst jobs on Total Jobs. We can see there's many positions open, but many of these companies often are trying to look for individuals who have some experience with automation, with AI, but many of the candidates, like universities, master's programs, even many of the up-to-date certifications aren't teaching the new AI and automation skills that are needed to stand out. So now everybody is coming through with SIEM experience, threat intelligence, threat hunting experience, for example. But now what we want to do now is build on top of that with automation tools that I'm going to show you shortly, and different AI projects that I'm also going to show you shortly that are going to help you learn these tasks and really stand out in interviews. So we need to start to learn how to use AI to win and get a job, and what we need to do is learn how to use AI in a cybersecurity context. So first of all then, using AI for detection engineering. So detection engineering is ultimately building new detection rules to detect malicious activity. Now what we can do, the process used to be threat intelligence. We'd manually build the detection rules, then we'd implement those rules in something like a SIEM, like Microsoft Sentinel. But now what we can do, we can gather threat intelligence like this one here. So this is an article explaining some of the Lazarus Group's latest attacker techniques. What we can do is grab that intelligence. We can head over to something like Grok or ChatGPT and prompt it with, based on this threat intelligence, create a list of SIEM security use cases for Microsoft Sentinel. And we can hit enter. So now, previously, when these tools didn't exist, this is the kind of thing that I was doing manually. It would take time to read through these articles, take time to build these security use cases. Now, I still recommend reading through these articles, but now use AI to your benefit to create these security use cases, because this used to take time to try and pull out different types of security use cases. It can even start to build the actual SIEM query for you here. So I've mentioned in the actual prompt to create some SIEM queries for Microsoft Sentinel. Now, these queries aren't always that good, but it's only going to get better. But the SIEM use cases use some really good use cases to kind of go and build off on. And even with the query as well, it might not be the best query, but as long as you've got some of the skills related to building SIEM queries in Microsoft Sentinel, for example, you're going to be able to build on top of this. And this is the only way that you can use AI. You still need to learn the fundamental skills, but then you can use AI to speed up your workflow and actually provide that kind of automation, which is what a lot of these companies are working towards now. So if you can save time by not having to do this all manually, and you can go into a company and you can say, look, I can actually perform detection engineering using artificial intelligence. This is a very basic project, but I do use this regularly on a daily basis. And you might even be able to come up with more sophisticated projects where you could completely automate this process based on the threat intelligence that is coming into that company. So now we've got a great list of SIEM security use cases here to build off on. And again, this is a great project that you can do for absolutely free. Now, if you're not sure what a SIEM actually is, so if you imagine a network. On that network, we have devices. Those devices generate logs, your servers, laptops, firewalls, antivirus solutions. Then you have a SIEM. One of the most popular ones these days is Microsoft Sentinel. Those logs get ingested into the SIEM. The SIEM has a set of rules called correlation rules, which are the queries that I just showed you. then those rules or queries are looking for malicious activity in these logs. If it detects that malicious activity, it'll generate an alert to send to you, the analyst, to review, and you'll either be escalating it as a possible cyber attack or incident, or then closing it out as a false positive, which means that the rule just fired incorrectly and the activity detected by the rule is not malicious, and then we'll look to improve the rule again. So this is just an overview of a SIEM if it's not something that you're aware of. So next up then, you can learn to use AI to streamline defenses. So what we mean by that then, one main tool that we have here is called Tines, and it's a workflow automation tool that can sit on top of a SIEM like Microsoft Sentinel, or in this case, another popular SIEM, Elastic SIEM, and it can actually automate many of the internal processes that a cybersecurity analyst would do. So like you can see here, you can completely automate the creating of a case, looking up the IP reputation, seeing if that IP is actually malicious, and then even issuing a block on a firewall to actually block that IP. Many of these tasks are usually done manually by a cybersecurity analyst, but now the role is changing. So the role is expecting you to be able to build these types of workflow automations. And if you can do this, it's not only going to save you time and your team time to actually work on more advanced threats, for example, or more advanced investigations, it's also going to help you stand out when it comes to interviews. Because if you go into an interview and you say, oh, I can analyze alerts, I can build detections, then yeah, that's great, but so can many other analysts out there. What analysts, many of them can't do these days, is build these workflow automations to actually automate the main role of a cybersecurity analyst. And that's one thing that you can say in an interview, that I have the ability to use a tool like Tines to automate many internal security operations center processes to allow the team to actually focus on the more advanced threats. So these kind of things are what is going to help you actually stand out. And Elastic have got a great article here where it talks about automating detection and investigation with Tines and Elastic SIEM. So there's many different SIEMs out there. Microsoft Sentinel, Elastic, Splunk, they all operate in a very similar way. So it doesn't matter which one you get experience with. Usually that experience could be kind of translated to other SIEMs anyway. But Tines and Elastic, you can actually use Elastic on a 30-day free trial, and I believe with Tines as well in that free trial as well. Sorry, it's a 2-week free trial. So you can use Elastic on a 2-week free trial and have a go to use Tines to try and automate some basic workflows. And this is a project that you can easily add to your CV and to your resume, and I recommend coming in here and reading this article to get a good understanding of what Tines is all about and how it can be used with Elastic SIEM. So thirdly then is using AI for threat hunting. So like I showed you earlier, where we grab the threat intelligence, we process it through an AI tool like ChatGPT or Grok, we build the actual detections, so these are the actual queries, SIEM queries, which is the detection engineering. And then when we're actually implementing them into the SIEM, we'll actually, before we'll do that, we'll actually use these queries for threat hunting. So once you've built these detection rules, we'll test them to make sure that they work. But the active use of trying to search for new threats based off new threat intelligence is actually threat hunting. So this is another thing that you can say. You can say that, oh, I can automate the creation of detection rules, but then I can also automate the creation of detection rules for threat hunting as well to speed up the whole process of actually going from finding new threat intelligence all the way to actively threat hunting. So these are the kind of things you want to start thinking of. These are the kind of projects that are actually going to help you stand out, and you want to make sure that you're actively including all of this information on your resume and your CV, because you'd be very surprised about the amount of callbacks that you get if you can say that you can automate processes and use AI tools in things like detection engineering, threat intelligence, and threat hunting, because this is what companies are looking for these days. So it's all well and good being able to use these AI tools, but do you actually know how to protect them? Well, the MITRE ATT&CK framework has this framework called the MITRE Atlas, and what this is doing is showing the steps that an attacker will take when they're trying to compromise AI tools or machine learning models. So again, it's all well and good being able to use these tools, but we still need to be able to learn how to protect them as well as blue teamers, as defense analysts and cybersecurity analysts. So the MITRE ATT&CK framework Atlas is showing the steps that an attacker will take to be successful inside one of these particular steps. They'll have certain techniques. So the techniques are listed out here. I'll show you what this looks like on the website. So this is the MITRE Atlas framework. And in here, you've got the different techniques. So if you go in and click on one of those, so AI supply chain compromise, it's going to tell you exactly what that is. It's going to explain the technique. And these are the kind of things that are going to help you understand how attackers are actually attacking these types of AI tools. And if you can start to understand this, then it's going to help you better understand how to actually defend these types of attacks. Like I mentioned, it's all well and good as using these tools, companies using these tools, but they'll also become an attack vector for red teamers, for external hackers and threat actors. So we need to be able to use them, but we also need to be able to defend against them as well. So the great thing you can use this as a home project. It doesn't have to be that technical. You can just write this down on a pen and paper. Just put yourselves in different scenarios and imagine how hackers can actually break in to companies, how they can hack into machine learning models, how they can actually compromise these artificial intelligence tools, and then you put yourself in different instant response scenarios so that when it does come to interviews, you can draw from that experience and say, I haven't personally been in an instant response scenario, but I have done a lot of tabletop exercises at home using the MITRE Attack Atlas framework that has allowed me to understand different scenarios that can impact and can end up in a compromise of a machine learning model or artificial intelligence tool. So definitely go away and have a look at this. So it's great that we can now use AI to our advantage and actually use AI to help us get jobs. But ultimately, you do have to be careful because these artificial intelligence tools are fantastic. They can provide a lot of more automation for security operations centers. They can make professionals like myself much faster and much more efficient. But ultimately, you can't just rely on these tools. You still need to know the fundamentals, which I'm going to show you shortly, a detailed pathway on how you can build those fundamentals and the skills needed for the role of a cybersecurity analyst. But you can't just rely on these tools. If you don't have the skills, you're not going to be able to prompt it. If you don't have the information in your head about what you're actually looking for and what you're trying to do, then you're not going to get anywhere. That's why you need to build the fundamentals, then get practice with these home projects. And by combining the skills, so the theory and the practical skills, it's going to help you stand out when it comes to these jobs. But always be careful. Don't just rely on these tools, because ultimately, if you just rely on these tools and you go into an interview and you just say, oh, I just asked ChatGPT and it gives me the answer, then you're not going to stand out. They want to know your full understanding of how you're actually using the tool and how you would actually protect AI systems as well. So talking about the pathway then, so this is a pathway that we call the do-it-yourself pathway. And ultimately, this is tailored towards getting a job in cybersecurity. So first of all, you need to build a foundation. So that can be that has to be in networking. And you could do something like the CompTIA Network Plus. So everybody's heard of that. Then your cybersecurity fundamentals, just jump straight into the CompTIA Security Plus. These are both well-known certifications. I will say one thing, the CompTIA Network Plus can sometimes be a little bit off-putting because it just go really detailed into networking. And a lot of these concepts you don't do on a daily basis as a cybersecurity analyst, but you still need to have a good understanding and foundation in networking, because ultimately cybersecurity is protected networks. So don't let it be off-putting, stick at it, and then once you've done that, go into CompTIA Security Plus. Then you want to pick a job role. So this is the part where you're narrowing the skill set down to the job that you want to do. Don't try and learn everything out there. It's going to make you feel overwhelmed. You're only just going to give up. Pick a job role here. Find out what skills relate to that job role. Now, if you want to go down the cybersecurity analyst route, one reason that we suggest that is considered the more entry-level route. It's not completely entry-level because you need some of the skills and experience that I'm going to talk about shortly. But ultimately, this is where you just want to focus on the skills related to the job role. Now, if that is cybersecurity analyst, then you want to focus on things like SIEM, look into Elastic SIEM, Microsoft Sentinel, AI and automation, like I just mentioned, using tools like ChatGPT for threat hunting, using tools like Tines in Elastic SIEM to automate certain workflows and processes in a security operations center. Start to understand about instant response, how to respond to a particular cybersecurity incident. Then cloud attack and defense. Start to understand how attackers are attacking the cloud, how to defend against it. Then you want to understand the different attacks that are out there, how to defend against those. The most common ones, your phishing attacks, your malware-based attacks, endpoint-based attacks, for example. Start to understand how attackers work, because ultimately that's going to make you a much better defender. Then when you're looking into the SIEM, start to understand the different detection rules are out there, the different queries, like I mentioned, that you were creating. Start to understand what those queries are looking for, because that's going to help you understand what the threats will look like in the logs that are ingested into the SIEM. Threat intelligence, to start going through Twitter, going through X, following security researchers, following different cybersecurity accounts, keeping up to date with things like podcasts. We've even got our own podcast as well, but other great podcasts like Darknet Diaries, Black Hills Information Security. All of this contributes to threat intelligence. Use websites like the Hacker News, for example. Stay up to date, because ultimately this type of intelligence is something that can be used for something like threat hunting. And I've shown you how you can build SIEM queries using a tool like Grok or ChatGPT to actually perform threat hunting. So you're getting your intelligence, building your queries, then you're actually doing the threat hunting in a SIEM and in the logs that are ingested in a SIEM analysis tools. So SIEM being the major one, but ultimately your firewalls, your network intrusion detection systems, your antivirus solutions, endpoint detection systems, all of this does get covered in CompTIA Security Plus as well. So you'll cover a lot of that. And then we put customer service down here because ultimately some of the best companies to go and work for as your first job are managed security service companies. Now, these companies do security on behalf of other companies, so it does mean dealing with customers, which can be a bit annoying, but ultimately, if there's an easier route into the industry, it's personally what I did, then I'd recommend doing it. So once you've learned these skills, you then want to do your home projects. Your home projects need to relate to each one of these areas. Now, setting up your own SIEM at home. I've got videos on this channel that talk about setting up Elastic SIEM. Performing automation. So I've already shown you some projects in here on what you can do with Tines, with ChatGPT. So you've got some experience there. Instant response. You can put yourself and do some tabletop exercises at home, like I mentioned. Cloud attack and defense. Set up your own AWS account and actually attack it and defend against it. Again, I've got a video that teaches you exactly that on this channel. Each one of the home projects needs to relate to each one of these areas, because then you're tailoring your skills towards the job and your practical experience as well. And these home projects are what will allow you to apply for jobs asking for 1 to 3 years worth of experience. Then once you've done all of this, set it up all on your resume and your CV. Be consistent. Be speaking to people on LinkedIn, reaching out to recruiters. You want to be actively applying. You can be passive as well, where you can just put your resume and CV onto these job websites. But ultimately, you want to be active as well on LinkedIn, reaching out to recruiters, networking with people in the industry. There's all of this that you can do. We've even got our own free community. It's called the Cyber Hub. It's in the link in the description. Completely free. We've even got some free cybersecurity fundamentals courses. But you can also network with myself. Come and join the community and ask me questions as well. The link is in the description. But you just want to be consistent here. When you are consistent, you will eventually get a job. And once you get that job, you can then look to specialize further. Maybe you want to go into red teaming, penetration testing, digital forensics, for example. There's other avenues that can go down, but you want to focus on this first. And then once you've got this, there's only time, give it patience, consistency, you will eventually get there. So to conclude then, you now know that the job market is changing in cybersecurity because many of the entry-level jobs are getting eaten up by artificial intelligence, but it's not all doom and gloom, because as I've shown you in this video, if you start to learn about these artificial intelligence tools and how to use them in a cybersecurity context, then you are going to be able to stay ahead, and then you are going to stand out when it comes to going for these interviews. So ultimately, I want to say thank you for watching this video. If you want to know what I do day to day as a cybersecurity analyst, I'll see you over in this video next. Thank you for watching. I'll see you over there.